Hi there, and welcome to today's vlog. If you're a regular viewer of my vlogs, you'll maybe have picked up the fact that there's been a little bit of a gap since the last one. And the reason for that is that Sue and I have been on holiday down in Kent, a place called Sibton Park, not too far from Hythe and not too far also from Canterbury. So we had a lovely time down there. The weather was on the whole kind to us, and we had a good relaxing time. One slight concern about going down to Kent was that whereas most of the country seemed to be recovering from the petrol shortage, the southeast was still a bit of a difficult area. But so we did wonder whether we'd be stuck down there without enough petrol to get home. Fortunately, we were able to find some petrol, and we got home again. On the Sunday while we were down there, we went along to church at Ashford, at the Ashford Vineyard Church, and I've got to say that it was the welcome we received in that church was wonderful. They knew we were just visiting for that one occasion, but they really welcomed us and appreciated us being there. And I'm sure that if we lived in that area, that would be one of the churches we might well want to be part of. But anyway, back home now. And I want to just focus on an interesting issue, particularly a challenging issue for local churches. I was talking recently with someone, I can't actually remember who I was talking with or the full details of the conversation, but this person was talking about someone who, for some reason, had left a local church. I don't know whether the church had closed or something had happened. They'd left a local church. So they were looking for another church to belong to, but they didn't want to. They said that they didn't feel that they could go to another church in that locality because they were well known, and they feared that as soon as they became part of another church, that church would say, "Oh, we know you're good at this or that," and want to give them a job. And they felt that for a time they wanted just to enjoy being part of a church fellowship without being loaded with jobs, and that is something that can happen. You join a church, and as soon as the church finds out what your particular gifts or abilities are, they try and load jobs onto you. Now, we do need to serve in different ways within the local church, but sometimes when you're new to a church and people start saying, "Could you do this? Could you do that?" It can be a bit off-putting. And I was reminded of that when Sue and I visited a couple of friends not long ago, and this particular friend was telling us that he'd been doing this particular role within the life of the church for quite a number of years, and felt that he'd kind of almost been taken for granted, and was in a particular area of that life of the church. He'd been kind of ignored and not included in the conversation about a certain development. So he felt a bit, he felt that sense of being taken for granted and ignored and left out. And so he took the decision that he would step down from that role. He was quite hurt by it. And apparently the minister rang him up and said, "But Fred," that's not his real name, "Fred, you are needed." And Fred replied, "I don't want to be needed. I need to be wanted." And there's a challenge for every local church. Do we, and I guess for every individual, do we value those people who may come into our church or are part of our church? Do we value people not because of what they can do for us or for our church, but simply, do we value them as people? Do we love them regardless of how much they can contribute to the life of our church? And going back to the welcome we received at the church down in Kent, we really felt that we were valued, we were welcomed, we were embraced into that church family. They didn't know anything about us. They didn't know what our past was, our gifts and abilities. They didn't know I was a Methodist minister, retired minister. They didn't know anything about either of us, and yet they embraced us. They valued us, not because they needed our gifts and talents, but because they simply loved us. So there's the question for every local church and for every Christian. Do we value people not because we need them to do this job or that job, but do we value them simply because they are children of God and we embrace them as part of our family? So that was quite a thought-provoking conversation and interesting question for us all. So maybe you can think about that if you're part of a local church. How does your church respond to those who come new among us? So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.